to duel!
The year is 2004. George Bush was still president, Facebook was still called the Facebook, and kids all over the country were tuning in to the climactic final duel between Yugi and Merrick. It was at this time, according to Google Trends, that Yu-Gi-Oh was at its absolute peak in popularity. In fact, it was even more popular than the game that it was a clone of, Magic the Gathering. As a certified playground classic, everyone knew about Yu-Gi-Oh! Even if you'd never seen the show, chances are you'd held or at least knew what a Yu-Gi-Oh card looked like. And while most of us at the time had no idea what a meta even was, the competitive scene was beginning to take shape as well. The first ever Yu-Gi-Oh! World Champion had just been crowned a year beforehand. New cards were releasing at a breakneck pace, players were constantly innovating with new strategies, sometimes completely breaking the game in the process. Movie deals, video games, McDonald's partnerships, anyone could tell you just how insane the Yu-Gi-Oh! Hype train was back in 2004.
Oh, Yugioh? You ever heard of Yugioh? Oh,
Yugioh!
Yugioh! Kids love that, man.
So, what's it like today?
Yu-Gi-Oh sucks now and it used to be epic.
Prohibitive from a cost perspective.
The worst card game out there.
A confusing mess right now.
Yu-Gi-Oh! Hasn't been in the best place for a while. Without a hyper-popular anime to bring in new players, and gameplay that only got more and more complicated as the years went by, Yu-Gi-Oh! Began to dwindle in popularity.
It is awful for you, it is awful for your kids. I think this game is something that you should not get invested in.
This would be somewhat alleviated with the introduction of Yu-Gi-Oh! Master Duel in 2022. The beautiful interface, along with the nostalgia of playing Yu-Gi-Oh! Again, brought back a lot of attention to the game.
You a little raw.
Yeah, I'm gonna change the
here.
names.
We're
I was trying to make
start
sure
with
I
some
did.
Red Eyes Insight.
But there were two problems. First, modern Yu-Gi-Oh! Is hard.
Jesus Christ. Like, what? I can pause it, but I don't think that's gonna help. And this is coming from someone who's played multiple card games. This game's fucking hard, dude.
Players who expected to jump right back into the game they knew were met with FTKs and combos that lasted for more than a century.
Oof! Oh no, that's lethal! What? You gotta be kidding me!
The second, far more concerning problem was that it wasn't bringing any new players into the real-life game.
New players are just not coming in as much as we'd like. We've got far and away the sleekest client to play our game and a really generous monetization model, and people just aren't willing to hammer it out.
Except, I don't think that's true. Have you ever played the trading card game, like in real life?
Not seriously.
Do you want to move over to playing the trading card game, or do you prefer Master Duel, or how do you feel about playing Master Duel versus playing like the trading card game?
I like Master Duel and I would like to play the trading card game. I'm just very intimidated by it, I guess.
Master Duel players do want to move over to the TCG, but there are a couple reasons why they're not moving over so quickly. One, Yu-Gi-Oh! Is expensive. Not everyone has the money to just spend on cards, not once, but twice. In fact, Master Duel in and of itself is pretty expensive. Like, to get a deck, like the deck that's recommended to you by a lot of these Yu-Gi-Oh! Sites, it'll be full of ultra rare cards that take forever to get.
I personally hate Master Duel. I tried several times to get into it. My biggest issue is that I have spent so much money on physical cards that working so hard to get the deck that I want in Master Duel is annoying to me. I feel like cards should have a little QR code or something on them so that you can scan them into games like that. That way you can have the cards that you have.
From a business perspective, a Master Duel player is probably worth more to Konami than a TCG player would be. Because for a TCG player, like to get a physical Yu-Gi-Oh card, Konami has to print, manufacture, and distribute physical cardboard out to people. But in Master Duel, it is completely virtual. They just like press a button and upload and the card's right in front of you. So a Master Duel player moving over to like paper Yu-Gi-Oh would be more of like a side effect, but a very lucrative side effect because Konami is essentially charging people twice for the same cards. People are like, oh, let me just play this game where I already have my deck and I've spent so much time in, then play the TCG where I have to buy all the cards all over again. Number two, Yu-Gi-Oh is hard. Everyone who knows about modern Yu-Gi-Oh knows that it is a very complicated game. When you play Master Duel, some of that problem is alleviated because the game kind of holds your hand.
I don't have to say anything. I don't have to really think about the phases changing or anything. I can just like focus on playing the cards. And, you know, I don't have to keep track of rules. I don't have to like double check that I'm doing things correctly. I can just like play.
Yeah. So like, you know, every activation window, every card effect, every phase, all of these things are explained to you by the game, so you don't have to think about it as much. To a new player, a new Master Duel player, this is a much more comfortable experience than playing in paper where you have to remember, oh, this does this, oh, I can activate this now, I can do this there, and it's like you have to, it's a much more active experience for sure, but it's also like a much more difficult experience.
But it can be really frustrating. Especially as a new player, it's like, not only do I have to learn all these cards and learn all these rules and try to figure out how to play, but at the same time, it feels like no one wants to let me play.
And reason number 3, Yu-Gi-Oh is scary. A lot of the people who currently play Yu-Gi-Oh in the TCG have been playing for decades. And as a new player, it can be kind of intimidating to walk into this shop and not know what's going on or possibly mess up a game, or even worse, like drop a maxi or something. What would you need to like actually like start going to play in person?
I think I would have to have a deck that I am fully confident in, and I feel like I would need some practice with like playing in person, maybe with someone that, you know, I'm not afraid of or whatever, like just like to like a fail safe, like, oh, like we're just playing for practice, and then I could go and actually like play matches, I think.
So there's definitely an interest from players to move into either format, but there are certain factors blocking them from making that jump. The interest of new players in the TCG is reflected by the participation of the most recent Yu-Gi-Oh tournaments.
Vegas had a ridiculous 1,713 players in attendance, which made up 571 teams. This makes it the largest Team YCS in Yu-Gi-Oh history, which in my opinion really says something about people's excitement for the game right now.
The difficulty of Yu-Gi-Oh does turn off a lot of new players who are introduced through Master Duel, but the ones who stay take a bit of time before they're comfortable enough to actually play in person. So that begs the question, where are the new players? Well, I found 3 main places where new Yu-Gi-Oh players go to. The first place I found is Discord. Not only is there a Discord server for just about every archetype in the game, there's also servers where people just full-on have duels. One such server is the Remote Duel Brotherhood. Here, players can duel, spectate, talk about decks, discuss Yu-Gi-Oh news, and basically anything else you can think of.
It lets me add MCETI, it lets me add
If you don't have any locals near you or want something that's a little less intimidating, something like this is a great way to connect with members of the Yu-Gi-Oh community. But of course, that's not the only way, because we live in the future, and you can also play Yu-Gi-Oh, well, here, in VR. Yu-Gi-Oh is a franchise that has holograms and VR built into its very DNA, something Konami is actually bringing to life with the announcement of Yu-Gi-Oh VR. But what if I told you there was already a Yu-Gi-Oh community in virtual reality? Meet the Duel Cafe. The Duel Cafe is a room in VR chat, a community-driven platform for social VR experiences. It's technically classified as a video game, but it honestly feels more like the next-gen social media. Users can create and upload their own avatars to appear as well as upload entire worlds for others to explore. The Duel Cafe is one of those worlds. Here, people can meet others, assemble decks, and duel, all from the comfort of their own home. Dueling here is pretty simple. You build a deck from a catalog of available cards, all of which are normally pretty up-to-date, by the way, and you press spawn at the table where you want to duel. Your deck and extra deck will appear at the table, pre-shuffled and ready to go. You can pick up cards and interact with them just as if it were real life, except here the cards float, which is insanely cool. The creator of this world, known online as Piano Walrus, even hosts monthly tournaments and hangs the winner's picture on the wall for all to see. Speaking of the creator, he's actually a really chill guy, and I actually got the chance to interview him as part of a more dedicated video on the Duel Cafe, kind of like a part 2. So definitely subscribe if you're interested in checking that out when it's done. But yeah, one of the most common sights in the cafe is people teaching new players how to play Yu-Gi-Oh, and it's really great seeing new players getting into the game. For now, I'll just say that the Duel Cafe has basically become my go-to spot in virtual reality. It's basically its own little locals in a way, which is kind of sweet. Plus, tons of people use this place to learn Yu-Gi-Oh, which is a great sign that people are still interested in the game. Anyway, I think I'm going to call it there for part 1. I've been working on this for way too long and need to put something out. Thanks so much for watching, and stay tuned for part 2 when it drops. And yeah, my name is Zoe, and have a good rest of your day.